Azamat Damir is the German correspondent for Zaman, Turkey's largest circulation daily newspaper. He made a special trip from Berlin to Munich to pick up his accreditation to attend the trial of Beate Zschäpe, a key member of the so-called National Socialist Underground, and 4 of her alleged accomplices. But like all other foreign journalists, he's been excluded.
The way this happened may be technically correct, but this is an exceptional trial. We pray that something like this never happens again. 8 Turkish citizens were killed, and in a case like this, the authorities should consider a different approach and at least free up a few places for Turkish journalists.
Here in the Munich neighborhood of Ramersdorf, within 100 meters of a police station, a fruit and vegetable seller named Habil Kilic was killed. He was shot 3 times in the head. He was the 4th victim of the so-called NSU, the radical right-wing terror group that consisted of Beate Zschäpe, Uwe Böhnhardt and Uwe Mundlos. The fruit and vegetable stand is still there today. It's had several different owners in recent years. Azamat Damir meets a friend of the Kilic family. Their relatives don't want to speak publicly about the case. The family is still traumatized by Kilic's death and how the authorities handled the case.
They suspected us of being involved when they questioned us. They took everyone's fingerprints and DNA samples. Anytime there was a murder, they called us to the station and asked the Kilic family if they knew so-and-so, if there was a connection. It never stopped.
10 murders. 8 of the victims had Turkish origins. 1 was German and Greek, and 1 was a German policewoman. The NSU also set off a nail bomb in Cologne that wounded many people.
Back then, people called these murders the Döner murders. Unfortunately, people thought it was the Turkish mafia or had to do with prostitution or gambling. A lot of rumors started about people who were no longer around to defend themselves.
Despite an increasing body of evidence, police failed to follow up on hints that the killers might be right-wing terrorists. Beate Zschäpe and her companions were able to go about their lives undisturbed for 13 years. Political scientist Tayo Funke has criticized Germany's domestic intelligence service, which employed paid informants within far-right circles. Many say that practice hindered the investigation.
They have stated definitively that they don't want to explain themselves when it comes to their informants. They've blocked attempts to clear it up. And the failure of investigators is a central part of this case. It's not just about the murders, but also why they failed to discover a pattern earlier.
Azamat Damir spent many hours with the NSU Parliamentary Investigative Committee in Berlin. He was amazed at the mistakes that were made, including document shredding. He couldn't believe that no one connected the murders for 13 years.
There are still many unanswered questions. Were informants actually involved? Was one of the members of the NSU an informant? These are very important questions, and I hope they'll be cleared up during the trial.
The NSU trio of Zschäpe, Mundlos and Böhnhardt disappeared in 1998 after explosives were discovered in Böhnhardt's garage. The group lived in secret, surviving on the proceeds of bank robberies committed by the 2 men. In the town of Zwickau, Beate Zschäpe disguised herself as a pleasant neighbor. In 2010, Mundlos and Böhnhardt were pursued by police after a failed bank robbery. They burned down their mobile home and killed themselves. Beate Zschäpe set off a bomb in their shared home in Zwickau and fled. 3 days later, she turned herself into the police. A parliamentary investigative committee has tried to reconstruct what happened. Eva Högl is part of the committee. She and her fellow members have had to recognize that authorities massively underestimated the scope of the extreme right-wing milieu in Germany.
They haven't done anything. No one has, from the security services to the police and domestic intelligence, and even the courts and politicians. That's the first thing. And the second is that there was a truly prejudiced view of the victims who had immigrant backgrounds.
Azamat Damir still has hopes for the Munich court, despite all the mistakes that have been made so far. He wants an explanation of what happened and justice.
I believe that Germany is a country where the rule of law applies, but I also expect the law to be applied. And these groups have to be exposed, whatever their origin or their views. They have to be arrested and go to trial and go to prison. That has to happen.
Damir wants to be there to look Beate Zschäpe and her alleged conspirators in the eye, whether he gets a seat at the trial or not.